shakedown, dry dock and a brand new outboard motor. Welcome to the June 2024 Shieldhall update video. Hi everyone, my name's Will and I'm a deckhand on board the Steamship Shieldhall. Now, when it comes to updating you guys back home, we've got several methods of keeping you guys in the loop. We have got social media such as Instagram and mainly Facebook. We have got a dedicated email newsletter chain, and my personal favourite, we have got a physical magazine that we mail directly to you at home. So not only can you guys remain as up to date as possible with the newsletter and social media and as in-depth as possible with the magazine, but with the medium of video, we can show you guys about the goings on and happenings with the Steamship Shieldhall. Isn't technology wonderful? Given this the first update video, where should we start? Well, I figured a good place to start would be right back at the start of the sailing season with the Shakedown cruise.
Hello, my name is Judy Theobald and I either work in the galley on the Shieldhall or I do the commentary. It's really lovely to be back at sea again. It seems ages when we finish in September until we're back on the water, but here we are all back again. It's come around so quickly. The sea's lovely and calm. It's great to be back with the crew. I'm really looking forward to the summer now. Excuse me, there's a mocking man standing here.
He's next.
He's next.
It's only going to get warmer. Oh, that's a good noise.
That was so cool.
My name's Thomas. I'm a cadet on board, and today I'm on the telegraphs. We're approaching our small ship's anchorage just past Fawley oil refinery. We're going to drop anchor.
I won't lie, the weather wasn't really playing ball that day, but nonetheless it was a lovely day to go down the Solent and come back. The next thing we're going to talk about, and the main thing we're going to talk about in this video, is the dry dock process down at A&P Falmouth. This is my first ever dry dock, and the one thing I love about this is that you can actually see some of Shieldhall's history on the underside of the hull. Namely, you can actually see the inlets and outlets of where the sludge was dumped. You can look up into them, but not only that, if we move further down the hull, you can actually see where some of the inlets and outlets were welded shut. What is a dry dock? Why do we need one, and why do we need one once a year? Well, to start that off, a dry dock is exactly as the name implies. It is a dock that the ship enters, all the water is drained, and then the ship will stand high and dry out of the water. The dry dock will actually allow us access and examinations of areas that we wouldn't normally be able to access and examine when the ship is in the water. And we're required to have one once a year because the Shieldhall is a historically preserved vessel. And historically preserved vessels that carry passengers are legally required once a year to have a dry dock examination to make sure that they are structurally sound. So any areas that need structural reinforcement or preservation can be examined and checked and ticked off. I suppose the simplest way to put it really is the annual dry dock is like your car's annual MOT. You've got to have one. And all of this work is done at the amazing A&P Falmouth, located down in Cornwall. A&P Falmouth is the largest ship repair facility in the entire United Kingdom. Not only that, but they are the only ship repair facility that can accommodate the Steamship Shieldhall. Also, they've been an absolutely fantastic company to work with over the years, helping with Shieldhall's preservation. And not only that, but the Cornish pasties down in Falmouth are fantastic. This year, A&P Falmouth put us into dock number 3. Now, at 220 metres long and 27 metres wide, the sheer volume of space that this dock took up, it made Shieldhall look tiny. Now, the first thing we did at A&P Falmouth, and you probably noticed this, we cleaned the ship's hull. Now, cleaning the ship's hull is not just about making the ship look nice and smart, although obviously that's an added bonus. This is actually about hydrodynamic efficiency. You see, when the ship sails through the water, when any ship sails through the water, drag is created by the waves and water around the ship. But having a nice smooth hull actually reduces the drag, making it more easy for the ship to sail through the water, keeping our fuel costs down, making the ship more environmentally friendly, and actually allowing more money to go into the historical preservation of the Shieldhall herself, and allowing her to continue operating for many years to come. One thing I really wish I could convey by being under here is the fact that it absolutely stinks to high hell and back. Now, some of the more observant of you will probably have noticed that on the hull of the Shieldhall, that's not coming off easily with the pressure washer, is this sort of dry noodle looking stuff. Well, it's fairly common here in the UK and it's called tube worm. As long as we keep it in check, it's not really an issue, but it is really, really, really annoying. The easier tube worm was able to be blasted off with the pressure washer, but the hardened stuff still clung to the ship. Now, for those of you thinking, why not just increase the pressure on the pressure washer to completely remove it? Well, see, it's not that simple, because increasing the pressure would have actually likely damaged the blue silicone paint that we use on the underside of the shield hull. Now, for those of you who don't know this, that silicone paint actually repels water to help with our hydrodynamic efficiency, and to touch the hull feels more akin to touching hardened rubber than it does to touching steel. So to tear that paint off with the pressure washer would have been more damning than simply, say, leaving the hardened tube worm on and actually tackling it next year during the 2025 dry dock, where we will have more time to do such a process. AMP Falmouth is also one of, if not the only location that we can lay out the entire length of Shieldhall's anchor chains and give them a proper examination. Now, this is the entire length of both anchor chains laid out on the floor of the dry dock in front of the Steamship Shieldhall. We can also see here that we are chipping away at the anchor and the chain and removing any rust that may be building up. Now, removing the rust and applying a brand new coat of paint will help protect the anchor and the chain from saltwater corrosion after repeated exposure to salt water. Given that the anchors and the chains are going to be repeatedly in and then out of the sea throughout Shieldhall sailing season, it makes sense that during the Falmouth dry dock, we lay out the entire length of both port and starboard anchor chains to make sure that both chains and both anchors are sound for the sailing season ahead. We also take this opportunity, with the entire length of anchor chain laid out, to inspect the chain locker located underneath the forecastle. It's not uncommon for small amounts of saltwater, dirt and sea mud to stick on the anchor chain and actually go with it into the chain locker. So it's vital that with this space empty, we actually give this space a proper clean and examination to make sure that the chain locker is actually good to keep holding several tons of chain for the sailing season ahead. Being able to utilise the dry dock to lay out the anchor chain and examine this space is a very rare opportunity indeed, so we make sure that this space is up to code and up to strength to make sure that it can still hold our anchor chain. And thankfully this year, it is. Also, fun fact, the end of any sort of mooring rope or chain or line on a ship is referred to as the bitter end. So given this is the end of the port anchor chain, this is literally the bitter end. The final thing we did with the entire length of chain laid out was to repaint the shackles. Now, the shackles on the anchor chain are used by the deck team in order to figure out how much anchor chain has actually been let out to hold the Shieldhall in position when she's at anchor. With that final task done, the port anchor chain was very slowly and carefully reeled in before finally the starboard anchor chain was very slowly and carefully reeled in. Ironically, we've been talking a lot about saltwater corrosion, but the anchors were actually left so that they would sit in the water, giving them one final clean before the Shieldhall actually winched them up and sailed off back to Southampton. Another thing we were able to achieve at AMP Falmouth was replacing a couple of the stays on the aft mast, namely the forward-facing ones. These stays had become so worn that they needed replacing, and utilising the equipment at AMP Falmouth to do so just wouldn't have been as easy here down at berth 110 in Southampton, so it was highly beneficial for us to do it while in Falmouth. Looking at this footage, two things are apparent. Number one, that the stays were so well secured to the mast that they actually had to be cut off, opposed to simply just removing the shackles. And number two, that this guy has clearly done this before, because I definitely wouldn't have been as confident up there as he was. Now, one thing we did this year, which I don't think has ever happened in the ship's history before, was we did a photogrammetry scan. But what is photogrammetry? Well, photogrammetry is taking an object or an area and taking massive independent photos of that object or area. What you can then do afterwards is render a massive 2D photo scan of that object, or even a 3D scan. Now, what I did with my drone was took lots of independent shots all the way down the starboard and the port side of the ship. And what I'm currently doing with this is I'm currently compiling it into one massive 2D photo mosaic of both the starboard and the port side. And then, with everything complete, the gangway was finally removed, which involved some fun toing and froing from the ship using this small discount looking TARDIS thing. And then finally, at long last, the dock was flooded and the Shieldhall slowly but surely floated. It was an absolutely fantastic sight to behold. But there was one more examination to do, which was the lightship examination. A lightship examination is a fairly complicated thing involving a lot of math. So I'm going to try and oversimplify it for you by understanding what's on board the ship at the time of the examination, seeing how she sits in the water and making notes of the markings all around the ship. We are able to understand how stable the ship is. Given that she was able to make her way back safely, she is alongside berth 110 and upright, I'd call that a success. Following the completion of the dry dock, we then had a smooth sailing back to Southampton for the very start of our sailing season, and what an absolutely monumental start to any sailing season we've ever had, which was to go and see Cunard's brand new cruise ship, the Queen Anne, set off on her maiden voyage. To go out and see the ship set off on a maiden voyage in an absolutely monumental show of fireworks, it was an incredible sight to see, and all of us on board the Steamship Shieldhall wish a long and successful career to the Queen Anne. But given we didn't sail again in May, what have we achieved on board? Well, there are two things I want to talk about. The first thing is the examination of the 10-ton freshwater tank. So we've got several tanks on board, but this 10-ton tank down at the very bottom of the ship is dedicated, as you would expect, to our freshwater supply. Now, normally we don't get the chance to look in here because obviously it's full of water and it's sealed up, but here we were able to drain it, climb on top of it, climb inside of it, and what you guys are looking at now, we never really get the chance to look at this or show this at all because not only is it in a crew-only area, but it's always full of water and it's sealed up. So you can see here we're applying a brand new bit of paint. Here we've got some brand new piping. We've given it a clean, we've given it an examination, an inspection. So it's an honor to share this footage with you guys and show you guys not only the inner workings of the ship, but also what it takes to preserve the Shieldhall. Now, the final update I want to talk about this month is actually regarding the rescue boat behind me. We got a brand new outboard motor for the rescue boat. We took the opportunity recently to launch it, and this is what it looked like. It's got some beams, that's for sure. For a boat that size, pretty nippy. But now we talked about the sailing season that's happened, it's time to talk about the sailing season that lies ahead of us. Now, this video is going to go live on the 7th of June 2024. However, the weekend ahead, the 8th and 9th of June 2024, is a very special weekend indeed. And I'm not just talking about for the Steamship Shieldhall, I'm talking about for the entire United Kingdom as a whole, as the entire country salutes D-Day at 80. And here at the Steamship Shieldhall charity, we've got some plans of our own. First, on the Saturday, we are going to be taking a very special cruise down to Leap in the New Forest. Leap is a very special location linked to D-Day because it helped give birth to one of the most important structures in D-Day, the Mulberry Harbours. We can also now publicly reveal that there is a very special episode of View from the Decks currently in production, which is all about Leap, the Mulberry Harbours, and the role that both played during D-Day. However, we are going to be releasing it later on in 2024 in order to not rush the production process. And next, on the 9th of June, we are going to be sailing into our naval neighbour city, Portsmouth. Portsmouth, D-Day, and the city's naval history just cannot be denied. But not only is the location going to be special, this cruise is going to be more special than most because as we sail into the harbour, we are going to meet another historically significant ship that is going to be sailing with us into the harbour. Our other cruises this month include the Round the Island race cruise on the 15th of June. Now, this is one of the biggest sporting events in the entire country. Over 1,000 boats take part in this race. It's a race all the way around the Isle of Wight, and what we do on the Steamship Shieldhall is we sail down into the Solent to watch the race as it takes place. And last but by no means least, ladies and gentlemen, on the 16th of June, we have got the Father's Day cruise. Now, I will say one thing. I am yet to meet a dad who has not enjoyed a lovely, warm summer cruise down the Solent on Europe's largest operational historic steamship, the Steamship Shieldhall. So, offsprings of dads everywhere, if you're struggling to find a gift for your dad this Father's Day coming, come on board, we're here for you. Come on, bring your dad. Mums, you are welcome too. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I feel for a first update video, that was really substantial. If you enjoyed it, then please hit that like button. But if you have any thoughts, comments, suggestions, ideas on the sort of updates that you want to receive from us at the charity, then please leave them in the comments down below. We'll be reading through every single comment to make sure we can make these videos as good as we can possibly make them. And if you want to see and hear more from the Steamship Shieldhall, then please hit that subscribe button. We'll also leave a suggested video on the screen for you so you can continue your journey with the Steamship Shieldhall. And if any of those cruises that I mentioned earlier sound interesting to you, then please book your tickets on board today, and we hope to welcome you on board the Steamship Shieldhall soon.